Open your closet door in 1985 and you could read your whole life off the labels. A row of wooden hangers, a structured suit jacket with shoulder pads, the dress you wore to the job that finally took you seriously, the jeans you saved 3 paychecks for, the silk blouse you bought yourself the week you stopped asking anyone's permission. But here's what most people never realized. Some of those labels were never really worth the money, even back then. A few were cheap goods dressed up in a fancy name, a few were pure hype with nothing underneath, and a few others were the real thing, genuine quality, made with respect for the woman who wore them. And you can still tell the difference today. So we're going to rank 10 of them, from worst to best, on one honest question. Not what they cost, but how good they truly were in their prime. The quality, the meaning, what they gave the woman who wore them. And when two come close, what became of them breaks the tie. Did it keep faith with you or sell you out? 3 of these brands were never worth your money, and the one at the very end of the row was the best thing hanging in your closet, and you may never have realized it. And if you've still got a piece from any of these tucked away in the back of your closet, stay with me, because a few of them are the kind of thing you should never, ever throw out. By the end, you'll know exactly which ones are worth holding onto. Let's start at the bottom of the row. Number 10. Gitano. If you bought jeans in the 1980s on a budget, and most of us did, you bought Gitano. They were everywhere. The mall display, the discount rack stacked high with folded denim, the mail-order catalog on the kitchen table. At one point, this was the single largest maker of women's designer-style jeans in the country. But let's be honest about what Gitano actually was. Its whole promise was the designer look without the designer price. The look of something nice without the something nice. They were cheaply made, they wore out fast, and the only real selling point was that little logo trying to convince you it belonged with the expensive brands. It didn't. The company overreached, opened around 100 of its own stores, piled up money troubles, and the brand that was once on half the legs in America simply faded out. Today, the name means almost nothing to anyone under 60. That's why Gitano sits dead last. It was never really worth your money, a cheap thing wearing a costume, and the moment something cheaper came along, it was gone. And nobody mourned it. The next one at least sold you a feeling. Number 9. Sasson. Say it with me because you know you can. Ooh la la, Sasson. That jingle lived in everyone's head, and it was supposed to be. Picture the television commercial, stylish young women, a wink of fake French glamour, the brand name stitched right across the back pocket. Sasson sold you a fantasy. The trouble is, the fantasy was all there was. There was nothing French about it, and there was nothing special about the jeans. You weren't paying for quality, you were paying for an advertisement you happened to be wearing. For a year or two, it felt like a status symbol. And then the feeling wore off as fast as it arrived. Because the moment Sasson proved you could sell ordinary jeans as glamour, every other label rushed in to do the same thing. The market flooded. By the middle of the decade, that little touch of magic was on every back pocket in the country, and Sasson had nothing left to fall back on. The jingle outlived the jeans. That's why it's number 9. Pure hype, beautifully marketed, but hype all the same. At least it was memorable. The next one wasn't even that. The next one just quietly took your money and gave you back the bare minimum. Number 8, Lerner, New York. Lerner was the workhorse, and I'll be fair to it. Picture a plain, well-lit store full of sensible, everyday clothing. This was where you went for the basics. The simple skirt, the everyday blouse, the pieces you wore down to nothing because they were cheap and they were everywhere. But that's exactly the problem when we're ranking on greatness. Lerner had no soul, no identity, no reason to love it. It clothed millions of women who just needed something for a Tuesday morning, and there's a place in the world for that. But you never felt anything pulling a Lerner blouse off the rack. You bought it because it was there and it was cheap, the same way you'd grab paper towels, and it showed in the end. Lerner was just one of many chains under the same corporate roof, and when the owner decided its stores were competing with each other, it was the one they let go. Through the 1990s, it went dark, quietly, until it was simply gone. Nobody noticed, because there was never much to miss. So it lands at number 8, the last of the 3 that were never really worth it. Cheap goods, no heart, forgotten the moment the lights went out. But from here on, the row changes. Number 7, Leslie Faye. Everything above this point was genuinely good, and the next one proves it, because the brand at number 7 made beautiful dresses and still fell harder than any of them. You knew Leslie Faye even if you never said the name out loud. It was the dress, the dependable, pretty church and luncheon dress, hanging in soft florals on a department store rack. If your mother had a closet full of day dresses with little flowers and a neat collar, there's a good chance some of them came from here. And here's where we step up in quality. Through the 1980s, Leslie Faye did beautifully, and it deserved to. These were real dresses for real life, well-made and flattering, the kind of thing you wore to a daughter's graduation or Sunday service and felt put together in. It wasn't flashy, it was dependable, and dependable is worth something. So why is it only number 7 when the clothes were this good? Here's the tiebreaker, and it's a hard one. In the early 1990s, the company was caught in a massive accounting fraud scandal. The numbers had been cooked for years. By 1993, it was bankrupt, and the factory floor, one of the last big unionized clothing factories left in America, went silent. The workers were sent home. That's what holds it back. The clothes were good enough to rank higher, but you can forgive a brand for going out of style. Being lied to is another matter entirely. Greatness isn't only about the fabric, it's about trust, and Leslie Faye broke it. The next one never had to ask for your trust. The quality spoke for itself. Number 6, Evan Picone. Now we're into the clothes you wore when you wanted to be taken seriously. Picture a tailored blazer on a wooden hanger, sharp shoulders, clean lines, the kind you'd lay carefully in a garment bag. Evan Picone made the tailored separates and the suits that carried a generation of women through meetings, interviews, and the moments that mattered. And the quality was the real thing. Classic, structured, made to last more than a single season. When you slipped that jacket on in front of the mirror, you stood up a little straighter. This wasn't a logo pretending to be quality, like the brands at the bottom of our row. This was quality. Full stop. You got exactly what you paid for, and it lasted for years. What keeps it at number 6 rather than higher is simple. For all its quality, Evan Picone was never quite the star. It was the reliable professional in the room, not the name women dreamed about or saved up for. It did its job superbly and asked for no attention. And over the years, it slipped away just as quietly. The label still turns up on a tag here and there, but the company behind it stopped being its own thing long ago. You can still find the name. You just can't find what it used to mean. So number 6, genuinely excellent clothes and honest value, quality you could trust without a second thought. It just never reached for the spotlight the way the names above it did. The next one didn't just sell clothes, it defined how an entire generation of women shopped. Quick thing before we get there, because it ties right into this. The hardest part of everything we're talking about is telling real quality from a logo that's only pretending, the difference between an Evan Picone and a Gitano before you've handed over your money. So I put it all into one guide. I ranked 85 clothing, shoe, and accessory brands from worst to best, with the exact 60-second check I used to tell a real brand from a cheap one, right there in the store. It's like having me in the fitting room with you. The link is in the description, and there's a QR code on your screen right now you can point your phone at. Now, back to the row. Number 5. The Limited. For a young working woman in the 1980s, the Limited was the store. Picture the storefront in the middle of a busy mall, the warm lights, the folded sweaters in neat color block stacks. You went there for the office-ready dress, the sharp jacket, the outfit that said you were going places. This was a genuine powerhouse, one of the most influential names of the decade, and it earned that ranking. The Limited practically invented the modern mall wardrobe for the working woman. Fresh styles, turned around fast in nearly every shopping center in America. It was so good at reading what women wanted that it grew a whole empire of sister stores around it. In its prime, it could do no wrong. And that prime is exactly what we're ranking. But the tiebreaker pulls it back from the top. As its core customers got older, the company chased them toward mature workwear and lost the very spark that made it exciting. Younger shoppers drifted away, the racks felt tired, and in 2017, after the malls themselves emptied out, picture the dark store, the bare shelves, the going out of business sign. The Limited closed every single store. What's left is just a name licensed onto clothing somewhere else. So number 5, a true giant of 80s fashion, held just out of the top tier because it lost its way and, in the end, lost itself completely. The next one was the brand you reached for without even thinking. The quiet backbone of your whole working life. Number 4, Jones, New York. If Evan Picone made the jacket you loved, Jones, New York probably made half of everything else you wore to work. Picture a full closet rod of coordinated suits, blouses, and trousers in navy, gray, and cream. This was the spine of the professional wardrobe. The dependable pieces you reached for without thinking because you knew they'd fit and they'd hold up through a long day. And on greatness, it earns this high spot honestly. As millions of women poured into careers through the 1980s, Jones, New York was right there with well-cut, genuinely good clothing made exactly for them at a price they could actually pay. It became one of the biggest names in women's work clothes in the country, and it got there the honest way, by being good and being fair. What edges it just below the top 3 is partly the tiebreaker. Over the years, it was bought and sold and bought again, and every new owner seemed to understand the woman who wore it a little less than the last. The name stayed the same. Everything behind it slowly drained away. So Jones, New York sits at number 4, genuinely excellent and fair in its prime, and far better remembered than most. The next 3, though, weren't just good. They were legends. And the first of them put a designer's name on a woman's body for the very first time. Number 3, Gloria Vanderbilt. You know the swan. Picture it, that little embroidered swan on the back pocket of a pair of dark, slim jeans. And this is where greatness becomes history, because Gloria Vanderbilt didn't just sell jeans. She arguably invented the whole idea of designer jeans for women before Calvin Klein, before all of them. That is not a small thing. That changed the entire industry. And the clothes lived up to the name. They were flattering. They were beautifully cut. They made women feel elegant and modern. And that little swan told the whole room you had taste. At its peak, this was a genuine cultural phenomenon, built around a real woman with a famous name and a glamorous life. On sheer 80s greatness, it belongs near the very top. Then came the fall, and here the tiebreaker actually works in its favor. Vanderbilt sold off the name in the late 1980s. The company went through bankruptcy, and it got passed around between owners like a hand-me-down. That should have been the end. Except it wasn't. Those jeans are still being made and sold today, right now, on the shelves at Kohl's, JCPenney, and Walmart, and that famous Amanda fit is still hanging on the rack as we speak. So number 3, a brand that was great enough to change fashion forever and stubborn enough to still be on women's legs today. It only misses the top 2 because, as huge as it was, it became one famous product rather than a whole world of clothing. The next one built that entire world. Number 2, Liz Claiborne. For a working woman in the 1980s, this was the name. Picture the power suit, the bold color, the confident shoulders. If you wore a Liz Claiborne suit on your first real day at a serious job, you are not alone, and you probably remember exactly how it felt to button that jacket in the mirror. This was the single most important brand of the decade for the woman building a career. Liz Claiborne built the first company ever founded by a woman to reach the Fortune 500 list. She designed for the real working woman because the companies she had worked for refused to, so she went and did it herself. Her clothes were everywhere, displayed in their own special section of the department store floor, almost unheard of at the time. She did not follow the moment. She created it. So why not number one? Here, the tiebreaker is brutal. After the founders stepped away, the brand lost its compass. The styles dated, it could not keep up with how fast women's lives were changing, and eventually the whole thing was sold off, ending up a faded label under JCPenney. The value that name once carried is simply gone now. It was the heart of this entire decade. And watching what became of it genuinely stings. That is why it is number 2, the most important brand on this list, brought just short of the crown by how far it fell. And the brand that beat it never made a single headline. It just quietly did the one thing none of these other names could manage. Number 1. Talbots. Here's your number 1, and the reason is simple. Talbots was great in the 1980s, and it's the only name on this whole row that never once betrayed the woman who trusted it. Picture the storefront with the bright red front door, the crisp white blouses, the wool skirts, and tailored jackets in a calm, classic palette. While everyone else chased trends or sold you a logo, Talbots kept doing the one thing it always did, and did better than anyone. Timeless, well-made clothes for a grown woman who knew exactly who she was. The kind of outfit that looked right whether you were 40 or 70. Through the boom of the 1980s, it grew from a tiny shop into a name women trusted completely. And here's the part that wins it the crown. In the late 1990s, Talbots got nervous and chased a younger, trendier customer, racks of clothes that just didn't feel like Talbots, and it was a disaster. The line bombed so badly, the company had to slash prices and watch its profits fall. But then it did what not one other brand on this list managed. It admitted the mistake and returned to the classics its loyal women actually wanted. That's the whole difference, right there. Talbots remembered who loved it. Today, it's still here, that red door still open, still running stores, still selling online, still making clothes you could pull on tomorrow morning and look perfectly put together. That's your number 1. Not the loudest name on the row, the best of them, and the most faithful. And faithfulness, it turns out, is the rarest quality of all. So there's the whole ranking, all 10, worst to best. 3 of them were never really worth your money, a cheap logo, a catchy jingle, and a soulless rack of basics. A few were genuinely great and simply lost their way. And a couple were so good they're still with us today. The brands at the bottom sold you an image. The brands at the top sold you something real, made with respect for the woman wearing it. And I promised you'd know what to keep. So here it is. If you've still got a real Liz Claiborne suit from the 80s, an Evan Picone blazer, or a Jones New York piece from back when it was made right, do not throw those out. That's genuine tailoring you cannot buy at that price today. And if you have an original Gloria Vanderbilt pair with the swan on the pocket, hold on to it, because those early ones have become real collector's pieces. The cheap ones you can let go without a second thought. But real quality from that era is worth more on your hanger than anything the mall is selling you now. Here's what I want to know from you. Which brand do you think I ranked too high, and which one too low? And which brand did I leave off completely? The one hanging in your closet right now that you'd have put at number 1. Drop it in the comments. Some of the best picks on this channel come straight from you.